Morning, everyone. This is your teacher, Dr. Jacqueline. I hope you're all well. I'm sorry I couldn't have a class yesterday because 6:45 a.m. in the morning, the power went out. This happened last Friday also, but within an hour, the power resumed. But yesterday, we got our power back around after 10 p.m. in the night. And a few moments after, I texted Saad that I'll have a lecture recorded and share the link with you on Monday. But Monday again, it seems that my hands are full or it's an off, right? The campus is off. I'll be home. But what if Monday again, I don't have power and I wait for another day? So instead of procrastinating, I thought of, having my lecture recorded now that I have the power and I have the basics to have a class recorded, right? So you can listen to this lecture within this week and get back to me in the first week of June when we are meeting with your questions, right? So no questions for the sake of questions, but I would appreciate that if you listen very carefully. Uh, Maybe you can bring more educated questions and we can have a discussion with the sense of direction, right? Rest assured, teaching you in real time has its own it has its own beauty. It's always good meeting you. Nonetheless, teaching online should not be a bad experience, right? So let me record the lecture. It's a Zoom lecture that I'm recording. Earlier, I thought of having my lecture recorded on YouTube because previously in the time of COVID, I was teaching e-commerce to some students, and then I had other subjects in my portfolio also. So I had a YouTube channel. So after the lecture, I will give my students a YouTube link. Same as what I shared with Saad yesterday, but it's all right. Zoom or be it YouTube channel doesn't make a difference as long as you know the content is delivered. So let's start. Students, I'm going to talk about transaction analysis, right? Fine. This is what we're having conversation today on transaction analysis. If you can see my slide, here it is. Oh, okay. So let's now zoom this out. Transaction analysis. Let's go towards the generic meaning of the word transactions. Okay. So the word transaction means an exchange, right? Find in the generic sense of the word. If we talk about what transactions mean activity, transactions mean an exchange. Okay, right? So you must have heard this term in your economics, in your finance and accounting more precisely, right? So it's pushing one thing your way and the other thing coming my way. That is a transaction, right? So it's an exchange, correct? Fine. We are, however, talking about transactions in the context of social psychological development. Okay, right? Uh, Let me put it simply. It's a nice topic. Some part of the we have done earlier when we were talking clarity. Some deeper details we are going to delve into today. Okay. So transactions basically are an exchange. This is the generic meaning of the word we are all familiar with. We are talking about transactions in the context of social psychological development. Well, let's talk about where to put transactions in the psychological development of a person. So we are talking about psychological development. We're talking about transactions which humans make every time we meet each other. Develop a basic science, okay? We humans, when we meet each other, for instance, when I meet Saad, when I meet Roha, when I meet, for instance, Aryan, or when I meet my boss, or when I meet my junior at work, every time I choose to interact with them, whatever message goes from my end, a transaction begins. Okay, for a transaction to begin, what is the natural motive? That something should go from one end to initiate a transaction. So early in the morning, when Saad meets me and he says, "Good morning, miss," and I return the greeting with a pleasant gesture, with a smile, and we smile from our eyes, we smile from our face, we smile from our body language, and I use positive words to respond back to him. This is one transaction completed in the positive sense. An exchange took place. Okay, Saad sees me. he greets me, he initiates the transaction. Okay. I close the transaction by responding to him. So this is Saad's greeting coming my way, and this is me returning the greeting towards him. Okay. So the exchange takes place. So this is a very healthy exchange. Okay. This is a very healthy exchange, a very healthy transaction. So we humans 24/7 do transactions throughout the day. We make transactions inside the house, we make transactions outside the house, we make transactions in the world where we are placed. Okay. Every time the humans choose to interact with each other, we are basically transacting. Transaction of energies, transaction of messages, transactions of meanings. So the word transaction here means interaction. All right, fine. मैं और आप as humans जब भी मिलते हैं तो एक transaction occur होता है. The moment we start talking to each other, a transaction starts shaping up. ठीक है, सही है. For instance, when I'm teaching you, some random students drop a knock at the door and they are saying they initiate a transaction. I'm in the regular teaching mode. You're listening. I'm teaching as things go in routine. Some group of students, they drop by, they drop a knock at the door, they drop by and they gesture me, Miss, can I come in? Can we come in? I say yes. And then they say, Miss, they're holding a scroll and they say, Miss, we have a what do you call an announcement to make about some carnival that is going on the campus that's going to take 5 minutes. Are we allowed? So they initiate a transaction. But the moment I say, no, my dear, I'm teaching, not now, please come in the tea break. So this is a transaction, but a transaction which was not positive. Okay. The person initiating the transaction expected the answer coming in the same direction, a nod or a yes. However, I say that, no, this is my class timing. Okay, please come later. Now, this is a negative transaction. We here in today's content are going to talk about what are positive transactions, what are negative transactions, how by virtue of certain messages that we give to each other while in conversation, our relationships deteriorate. Okay. Whenever, for instance, let me take an instance. You have many students in your class. You all are a nice, respectful group to interact with every time. Okay, all boys, all girls in your class, you're wonderful people. I had a wonderful time with them. You're grown-ups, you're mature, you are fine breed quality people, right? So I cannot exactly recall everybody's name right now here. You're all very dear to me. Let us suppose that we need an instance to start the conversation with, right? Fine. I say to Roha, for instance, that Roha, there's a handout that you were supposed to collect for today's class. Okay. You're not carrying it. Please go down and get it. We need it for a 3-hour session. So this is a transaction starting. My message going to Roha. My message going to Roha. And what the messages I just shared. In return, if Roha says that I don't have the chapter, but despite that, I will sit in the class. Do what you want. It's my choice. I'll enter the class the way I want. Without the chapter, without the book, it's my call. Why are you stopping me? So in this case, the transaction, that is the interaction, is very bitter, right? Onwards, I may choose not to talk to Roha. I may choose to keep my distance, or I may conclude that maybe she's immodest, she's disrespectful. So this is what happens in relationships. Okay? Human relationships are based on the basic premise of interaction, how we choose to interact. Remember, students, disrespect invites disrespect. Respect invites respect. This is the basic rule of human interaction. This is how transactions ideally should take place when humans choose to interact. Okay. As and when we move forward, we'll talk about many things. What is this? So this is what I shared with you. Transaction analysis. We are studying transaction analysis. Analysis means a deeper study. So the word transaction means an exchange. We're talking exchange of interactions. Okay. The word transaction is a fundamental unit of social interaction, which takes place when people encounter each other. Encounter means meeting up. Okay, every time we meet each other, every time we encounter each other, a transaction takes place. It could be healthy, it could be bitter, it could be sweet, and we fold them in the context of human interactions. The word analysis means to continue something or to examine. Okay, so there is a video link. Let's open this and see what it is trying to share with us. Okay, right? This theory of transaction analysis was given by Eric Byrne. Let's finish watching this message in the Okay, okay. Um, Long video, right? Fine. Let me fold the message of this video in my lecture when I'm talking to you today. Okay, right? This video is good to watch once you have finished studying transaction analysis and you want a capsule summary of what the whole idea is about. Okay, right? So since I'm opening the window, I'll go at a slower pace and you can catch up with me. All right, fine. There's another video left. If this is for a longer duration, then I choose not to play it right now. Okay, towards the end of the class, let's begin. Now, this whole idea of transaction analysis was given by Eric Berne. Where do I have an F5 here? F5, F5. Okay, I actually got a new laptop for my online classes, and when I'm using HP, the F keys are just on the top. Where are my... Okay, let's try this. Okay, so this whole idea of transaction analysis was given by Eric Berne. Eric, E-R-I-C-B-E-R-N-E, Eric Berne. He's the basic person behind the fact that human relations are like a transaction, okay? Whatever you give, you get the same thing in return. That is one of the psychological takes of psychological analysis. Here and onwards, I'm going to refer it as TA. So TA is a system of analyzing and understanding human relationships, right? Some people say human relationships are complex. Some say that they are easy and transparent. If you ask my opinion, well, it's all about what you're putting in the relationship. The same is what you get back, okay? Most of the time, this is what happens. There are few people who, out of their goodness and kindness and good self-being, would not return the negative energy that you have sent them from your way, right? Fine. They would still try to be kind and gentle. But most of the time, humans, if you instigate somebody, trigger somebody to do something negative, you get the response. Okay, so you get the same response. So transaction, and usually when we favor people, once we are kind to them, we are generous to them, we are positive to them, right? They respond in the similar direction. So transaction analysis as an idea was first developed by the psychiatrist Eric Berne, and his premise of how relationships maneuver or administer has a basic rooting from Sigmund Freud's theory of psychoanalysis. Remember, we studied psychoanalysis. We studied psychoanalytical theory of Sigmund Freud, and we talked about the fact that humans have three personalities, three elements in the personality, right? We have the ego, we have the id, we have the ego, and we have the superego. Where we talked about that the id is the player self, right? We humans seek pleasure. We humans also have an ego side to ourselves, which is the reality part, right? It helps us make decisions in the real world. And we also have a moral part to ourselves, that is the morality principles, okay, where we discern between right and wrong things. So the basic premise of Eric Berne's theory of transaction analysis, it has been drawn from Freud's theory. How? I'll talk about it. So when we are discussing Freud, we've already discussed. Berne, we're going to talk about today. So when we're having a discussion put on a drawing board, we'll find the common and the uncommon. What is common in Freud's theory and Eric's theory, and what is uncommon in between two? Right, fine. So the theory was founded by Eric Berne in 1910. 1970, he has a seminal work on it. So what is transaction analysis? It is a method of studying interactions between individuals, right? So we've talked about this. Let's study this a little. The unit of social interaction is called a transaction. Okay, every time we socially interact with each other, we're basically making transactions. So a transaction takes place when two or more people encounter each other, right? Sooner or later, either of them will start the conversation. Okay, you are at a station, you're at a bank, you're at a subway, wherever you are. Whenever two people meet, after some time, either of them initiates the conversation. Right? Fine. So sooner or later, one of them will talk or give some other indication of acknowledging the presence of the others. Some people acknowledge the presence of the other people sitting on the right and left, either by a smile, either by a handshake, either by a gesture, some act of kindness. And this is called transaction stimulus. You start with the transaction. आपके end से कोई चीज initiate होती है. For instance, the very first day when you came for your orientation session for the BBA program, right? You were all strangers to each other, but there was somebody sitting on your right, somebody sitting on your left, and you may Still recall, maybe if it's humanly possible for you to find out that, oh, there's a person in your class today on the fifth semester who you met on the day of your orientation. You had a conversation with the person that day, few years back, right? Maybe 3 years back. So the transaction started from your end. It could be something like, hello, you can sit here. Nobody's sitting next to me. This is a stimulus. You are stimulating a welcoming gesture, right? Another person who you are gesturing to sit next to you may say that, oh, I will sit in front. Thank you so much. Or thank you so much for offering me a seat. Thank you. So, see, another person will then say or do something which is in some way related to the stimulus. Whatever the person is saying, thank you or no thank you, this is in direction of the stimulus. So whatever the message comes from the person's end, this is called a transaction response, right? So try to understand the stimulus and response. स्टिमुलस एक ऐसा मैसेज है जो आप देंगे कॉन्वर्सेशन को स्टार्ट करते हुए, इंटरेक्शन को स्टार्ट करते हुए. रिस्पॉन्स एक ऐसा मीनिंग है, एक ऐसा आप समझ लें कि ट्रांजैक्शन में जो एक्सचेंज अगले एंड से आएगा उसको हम रिस्पॉन्स कहते हैं. ठीक है, सही है. सो let me know, can there be an interaction between humans without stimulus and response? They cannot be. For interaction to take place, right, the stimulus and response need to be, they are very integral. Okay. Now, Bert felt that an individual could learn what the problem was by simply observing what was communicated, either through words, body language, or facial expressions in a transaction. बर्न ने यहाँ बहुत अहम बात करी है. बर्न का नैरेटिव ये है कि भाई हम जब ट्रांजैक्शंस करते हैं लोगों के साथ, ट्रांजैक्शन का मतलब क्या है? ह्यूमन इंटरेक्शन. मैं अगर रोहा से करती हूँ, साद से करती हूँ, आर्यान से करती हूँ, ठीक है, क्लास में आपके बाकी स्टूडेंट से करती हूँ, तो मेरे एंड से एक स्टिमुलस आता है ना. मैं आपसे कहती हूँ कि वी हैव अ क्विज टुडे, राइट, देयर इज अ सरप्राइज क्विज. और आप अचानक से जो है, व्हेन यू गेट स्टार्टल्ड और व्हेन यू फील टिमिड, or once you move down in your seats, or once you recline forward, or once you show excitement. So all of these gestures that you are showing through your body language is also communicating something to me. आपका response मुझे मिल गया है. The moment you go suddenly silent, this pin drop silence when I say there's a surprise quiz, that is also a response coming from your end to me. And the moment you say, Miss, we are ready, you show excitement, there's a smile on your face, you are moving towards me and you are talking to me, you start tearing out a piece of paper, you come in the position to give a quiz. This is also an expression and a response coming towards me. So Burns said that in order to analyze a transaction, we are not only dependent on words to know what the other person wants to respond. Even the body language on the facial expressions in a transaction also tell people many things. So instead of directly asking the other person questions, Byrne would frequently observe them in a group setting. बर्न हमें यहाँ पे क्या कह रहा है कि हमें लोगों से महज कॉन्वर्सेशन में इंगेज होने की जरूरत नहीं टू नो कि वो क्या रिस्पॉन्स करना चाह रहे हैं. आप महज उनको साइलेंटली ऑब्जर्व करें. देखो स्टूडेंट्स, एवरी फेस हैज अ मीनिंग. Every face has a story. Every sitting posture is telling you something, whether you're interested, whether you're forced to sit, whether you like being here, whether you don't like being here. So merely by observing people silently in the group, you can also get to know what their response is. Okay? जैसे क्लास में आपकी 3 घंटे की लेती हूँ, तो जो ही क्लास 3 घंटे से बियॉन्ड एक्सटेंड करती है, ठीक है, मेरा स्टिमुलस क्या है? आई एम टीचिंग यू फॉर 3 hours. दैट इज माई स्टिमुलस. ठीक है. Beyond 3 hours, what you do, you start watching the clock behind me. That is a response coming from you. And that response is telling me that, Miss, we can't take beyond. Can we just call it a day and do the remaining portion on the next day? ठीक है. If I put my foot down and say that, no, we are studying 2 more hours in a row, अब इस केस में क्या है? You start feeling disinterested, right? You start feeling losing your interest. You start losing on your attention. You feel being coerced to sit. इस केस में ट्रांजैक्शन लॉन्ग टर्म में हेल्दी नहीं होगा. ठीक है. So noting all of the transactions that occurred between them and individuals, so what is the basic catch of this passage is that Byrne feels that through verbal and non-verbal language both we can understand responses in transactions. Okay. TA theory, that is a transaction analysis theory, outlines how we have developed. अब देखिए स्टूडेंट्स, ये बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट मैसेज है यहाँ पे. हम किस तरह से लोगों से इंटरेक्शन करते हैं. जब कोई स्टिमुलस स्टिमुलेट करता है हमें किसी कॉन्वर्सेशन के बारे में, जैसे हम जवाब देते हैं, वो बेसिकली शो करता है कि हमारी डेवलपमेंट कैसे हुई है. ठीक है. जैसे आपकी क्लास में स्टूडेंट्स अच्छे हैं, मैनर्ड हैं, मैंने फिर आपसे कहा, I had good time working with you, but once a while in these 20 years, once a while I do come across some horrid students. I mean, they would talk down, they would misbehave, they are abrupt. You can expect anything from them. They would have a aberrant, deviant behavior, right? So they will show this spiteful side. So once I see this in them, then I keep my distance, okay? Because I can't stoop so low with people, right? Let me share an instance. There's a 3 hour class that I usually take, right? So this has been my pattern for last 21 years. So there's a student who walks in like when 50% of the class timing has already, passed. And after an hour and a half, he walks in the class and he just with a very heavy hand, he opens the door. He just like barges in, right? And he's moving in the class right and left, right? Very informal, very casual. And I'm in the middle of the session. The session has a momentum. I'm building a thought, and it took me some effort to build it. Right, fine. I just don't allow anybody to walk over it. So I told the student, please leave my classroom. You're disturbing me. So he just booed back at me. Right, the behavior was disrespectful. It was not in line with the class conduct. Right, fine. So this is an interaction. What is this? This is an interaction, right? Your teacher, your professor is telling you to leave the class because what you're doing is deviant behavior. And on the contrary, in response, if he is further showing that he has tendencies to even cross lines and limits, right, then he is basically showing how he's developed. ट्रांजैक्शन एनालिसिस थ्योरी आउटलाइंस हाउ वी हैव डेवलप्ड. अब हम जब किससे इंटरेक्शन करते हैं ना स्टूडेंट्स, ठीक है, तो जो हम रिस्पॉन्सेस लोगों को देते हैं या हम जैसे कन्वर्सेशन को स्टिमुलेट करते हैं, दैट बेसिकली शोज हाउ वी आर डेवलप्ड. हम कहाँ से आ रहे हैं, हमारी रूट्स क्या है, हमारी ग्राउंडिंग क्या है, हम क्या एक्सपोजर लेके आ रहे हैं, क्या कंडीशनिंग लेके आ रहे हैं, और ये कि हम अपने आप को कैसे ट्रीट करते हैं. ठीक है, सिंगल रखिएगा कि हम जब किसी से बदतमीजी से बात करते हैं, रूडली बात करते हैं, उसको हम निशा दिखाने की कोशिश करते हैं, उसको हम अभी जानने की कोशिश करते हैं, उसको हम मिसट्रीट करते हैं, उसको हम सेकेंडरी ट्रीट करते हैं, तो बेसिकली हम उसको अपने बारे में कुछ जानकारी दे रहे हैं. There are certain words I choose not to use in my language. मैंने पहले भी आपसे कहा था, our words frame our mind. ठीक है, our words frame our mind. The words I choose in my everyday language is going to shape my mind, and that is going to affect my day-to-day actions. ठीक है, there's a word I wrote for you on the board in the previous classes, FUCK. Right? Remember, I taught you, I was teaching you a topic and I wrote this word on the board. And why didn't speak? I wrote it. Why? Because if I speak it, it will become part of my language. I'll say it after every 10 minutes. So speaking foul language is basically associating yourself with the language. वो language आप ही में से तो आ रही है. ठीक है? So how we choose to do our day-to-day interactions in human, how we choose to do our day-to-day interactions basically tells us how we are transacting. ठीक है? And that shows how we have developed and how we treat ourselves, how we relate and communicate with others. And it offers suggestions and interventions which enable us to change and grow. This is a very beautiful narrative. It says कि ट्रांजैक्शन एनालिसिस थ्योरी बेसिकली सिर्फ ये नहीं बताती कि आप लोगों से इंटरेक्शन करते हैं, इस इंटरेक्शन पे ये होता है, इस इंटरेक्शन पे ये होता है. ट्रांजैक्शन एनालिसिस थ्योरी बताती है कि बेसिकली आपका भी मिरर इमेज होता है कि आप कैसे डेवलप हुए हैं. ठीक है, जैसे कुछ स्टूडेंट्स को कैंपस से मैं देखती हूँ, जब बात करते हैं तो बड़े इनफॉर्मल होते हैं आपस में भी. ठीक है, सही है. ठीक है, आपकी अपनी स्पेस है, फ्रेंडली होना अलग बात है, बट व्हेन यू आर बीइंग टू रैश, तो वो भी नजर आता है. और वो आपकी डेवलपमेंट दिखा रहा होता है कि आप पिछले लाइफ कहाँ गुजार कर आ रहे हैं, आप पे क्या क्या एक्सपोजर्स थे. और वो ये भी शो करता है कि आप खुद को कैसे ट्रीट करते हैं. जैसे मैंने आपसे कहा कि यू आर अ ग्रुप ऑफ 50+ पीपल, राइट. आपने कभी मुझे सुना है मैं आपको भी तुम करके बुलाती हूँ? मैंने कभी सात को तुम नहीं बुलाया, रोहा को तुम नहीं बुलाया, हालांकि आप मुझसे 20-25 साल छोटे हैं. लेकिन रिस्पेक्ट का बेटे ताल्लुक और पॉजिटिव इंट्रैक्शन का ताल्लुक इस चीज से नहीं होता कि आपकी एज क्या है. ठीक है, आई बिलीव इन ट्रीटिंग पीपल नाइसली. And where disrespect starts, I would leave that table. I don't stay there a minute. ठीक है, सही है. सो मैंने अभी आपसे क्या कहा कि disrespect invites disrespect and respect invites respect. ठीक है, so if I want people half than my age to treat me with respect, I better start the transaction on a positive note. ठीक है, आपकी क्लास में कोई मुझसे मिसबिहेव नहीं करता, एंड आई डोंट टेक इट फॉर ग्रांटेड, इट्स अ कॉन्शियस एफर्ट। लेकिन उसके लिए मैंने बड़ी कोशिश की है कि इन द फर्स्ट प्लेस मैं आपको डिसरिस्पेक्ट ना करूं। ठीक है, आपको क्लास में डांट मुझसे बहुत पड़ती है, लेकिन आप मुझसे कोई आगे से जवाब नहीं देता है। ठीक है, नोबडी टॉक्स डाउन, नोबडी मिसबिहेव्स, नोबडी इज क्रॉसिंग लाइंस। सो मकसद होता है कि आपकी जहां गलती है वहां आपको रोका जाए, आपको ह्यूमनली डिसरिस्पेक्ट ना किया जाए। क्योंकि मैं जब आपको डिसरिस्पेक्ट करती हूँ ना, मैं आपको बताती हूँ कि मेरे अंदर भी डिसरिस्पेक्ट करने की खुद को भी सलाहियत है। ये ज़हन में रखिएगा। रिमेंबर वी वर हैविंग अ टॉपिक डन ऑन डिफेंस मैकेनिज्म, उसमें हमने क्या पढ़ा था? जब मैं आपसे कहती हूँ आई हेट यू, मैं आपको क्या बताती हूँ? दैट आई हैव अ टेंडेंसी ऑफ सेल्फ हेट ऑल्सो। ठीक है, सो हाउ वी रिलेट एंड कम्युनिकेट विद अदर्स, हाउ सो एवर वी चूज टू, ध्यान में रखिएगा, इट्स नॉट बाय डिफॉल्ट, इट्स बाय डिजाइन, इट्स वेरी डेलिबरेट। आप अपने से छोटे से, अपने से बड़े से, अपने से कमजोर से, अपने से ताकतवर से कैसे कैसे इंटरेक्ट करते हैं, कैसे कम्युनिकेट करते हैं ना, इट इज नॉट बाय डिफॉल्ट, इट इज बाय डिजाइन। चाय वाले से आप तू करके बात करेंगे, तुम करके बात करेंगे, उससे आप हकीर जानेंगे, उसका मजाक उड़ाएंगे, उसको मिसट्रीट करेंगे, ये बड़ा कॉन्शियस एफर्ट होता है, ये बड़ा कॉन्शियस काम होता है करने वाला। ठीक है, सो कोई ना बोले कि आई इट वाज अनकॉन्शियस, इट वाज आई वाजंट प्रिपेयर्ड, आई एम नॉट लाइक दिस बेसिकली शोज हाउ यू हैव बीन डेवलप्ड। ठीक है, एंड हाउ यू ट्रीट योर सेल्फ, बिकॉज योर कॉन्वर्सेशन इज पार्ट ऑफ यू। ठीक है, सही है। वन डे आई वेंट फॉर अ लंच विद टू पीपल। उन्होंने कहा कि मिस ईद है एंड इट्स बिन अ वाइल के वी डिडंट मीट। मेरे पास टाइम नहीं होता मिलने का, मैंने पहले भी आपसे कहा है, लेकिन वो काफ़ी ज़्यादा पोस्टपोन हो रहा था, तो आई थॉट के चलो लेट्स मीट अप। ठीक है, तो वो बहुत महंगा रेस्टोरेंट था, अच्छा रेस्टोरेंट था जिन्होंने होस्ट किया। आई वेंट देयर, गाड़ी में पार्किंग में मुझसे मिलके, पार्किंग से मुझे हेल्प करते हुए, मतलब हेल्प करने का मतलब ये है कि दे वर बीइंग कर्टियस एंड पोलाइट। ठीक है, सही, दे वर टू जेंटलमैन, फाइन, गुड जेंटलमैन, academically very high achieved, let me tell you that. ठीक है, but the moment I was carrying my bag, ठीक है, a bigger size bag, it was a tote bag, if the girls would know, it's this big. ठीक है, so when I entered, I asked the attendant, the waiter, that I need a table, a small table or a smaller chair to put my bag. So the person noticed my body language, because as I wasn't the first lady walking in seeking a chair or a table to put my bag, ये normally होता है। तो मुझे देखते ही साथ वो पहचान गए, उन्होंने कहा मिस आपको बैग, अब टेबल चाहिए बैग रखने के लिए, सीट चाहिए बैग रखने, मैंने कहा जी काइंडली हेल्प मी। तो वो आए, छोटी सी टेबल लाके उन्होंने रख दी मेरे सीट पे साथ, और मैंने अपना बैग वहां रख दिया। थोड़ी देर में दिस अटेंडेंट केम, ही वाज अ वेटर विद द मेन्यू। ठीक है, और जो साहब होस्ट कर रहे थे उन्होंने कहा कि भाई अच्छा ये बताओ, ये है तुम्हारे पास, ये है तुम्हारे पास, ये है तुम्हारे पास, ये है, अच्छा डू यू हैव प्रॉन टेम्पुरा? तो शेफ जो वेटर था उसने बताना शुरू कर दिया कि प्रॉन टेम्पुरा ये होता है, इसमें ये सॉस होती है, देयर इज अ राइस दैट गोज विद इट, आप चाहें तो साइडलाइंस भी ले सकते हैं। एंड दिस पर्सन सडनली इंटरप्टेड, he grew very rash on him, his behavior was very abrupt, he insulted the waiter। क्या लग रहा है, मैं फर्स्ट टाइम यहाँ पे खाना खाने आया हूँ? एंड आई वाज लाइक अरे ये क्या है? ठीक है, तो बिहेवियर मेरे लिए बड़ा जो था वो, इट वाज डिफिकल्ट टू कंटेन। ठीक है, क्योंकि जो साहब होस्ट कर रहे थे, ही वाज अ मैन ऑफ, ही वाज अ वेरी सक्सेसफुल मैन फ्रॉम सोशो इकोनॉमिक पर्सपेक्टिव, एंड द वेटर ऑन द अदर एंड वाज जस्ट डूइंग हिज जॉब, ही वाज इन हिज लिमिट्स। It is his job to tell people how the food varies, how to pair the food, how to order the food, what could be the best combination. But I didn't like the way this man treated the waiter। ठीक है, तो एक ट्रांजैक्शन ही हो रहा था ना, राइट? तो बेसिकली किस चीज की रिफ्लेक्शन है, क्या आपकी डेवलपमेंट कैसे हुई, आपके पास से आपकी हिस्ट्री क्या, आपके ओरिजिन्स क्या है, और ये कि आप खुद को कैसे ट्रीट करते हैं। सो नेवर अंडरमाइन दैट। ठीक है बेटा, आपसे जब कोई दुनिया में कहीं भी मिले, मुल्क के अंदर, मुल्क के बाहर, छोटे प्लेटफॉर्म पे, बड़े प्लेटफॉर्म में, ऑलवेज पुट योर बेस्ट फुट फॉरवर्ड। तहजीब से मिलिए, तमीज से मिलिए, ये आपका रिफ्लेक्शन होता है। ठीक है, और आपको को ट्रिगर करे भी बदतमीजी करने के लिए, तो खामोशी इख्तियार करिए, वहां से चले जाइए, डोंट एंगेज इन फाउल कॉन्वर्सेशन। ठीक है, डोंट डू दैट, राइट? So, ideally, transactional analysis theory, it offers suggestions and interventions which will enable us to grow and change। ठीक है, सो आइडियली थ्योरी में क्या है, लोगों के लिए सजेशंस हैं कि कैसे हम इंटरवीन कर सकते हैं, अपनी पर्सनैलिटी को इन्हांस कर सकते हैं टुवर्ड्स चेंज एंड ग्रोथ बाय कमिंग अप और अडेप्टिंग पॉजिटिव इंटरेक्शन ट्रेट्स। So, transaction analysis theory is a theory of personality and a systematic psychotherapy for personal growth and personal change. हाँ बिल्कुल, देखिए स्टूडेंट्स, ये चीज हमारे लिए नई है सीखने के लिए कि ट्रांजैक्शन एनालिसिस का थ्योरी पता तो हमारी पर्सनैलिटी से होता है. Simply said, how we choose to interact with people basically shows our personality. ठीक है. क्योंकि मेरी इंटरेक्शन 7 से ज्यादा होती है तो इनकी मैं आपसे एग्जांपल शेयर कर रही हूँ. नोइंग दैट यू आर ऑल रिस्पेक्टफुल पीपल, यू आर ऑल लवली पीपल, 7 से इंटरेक्शन ज्यादा होती है तो आई एम शेयरिंग दैट विद यू. ठीक है. एंड जैसे मेरे एक्सपीरियंसेस है मैं वैसे ही आपसे बात करूंगी ना. ठीक है, सही है. अच्छा, साथ में नोट्स किया कि इनसे मैं फोन पे बात करूं, कॉल पे बात करूं, व्हाट्सएप पे बात करूं, इन पर्सन बात करूं, ऑफिस में बात करूं, क्लासरूम में बात करूं, कॉरिडोर में बात करूं, द बॉय इज ऑलवेज एट हिज बेस्ट बिहेवियर. Every time he chooses to interact with me, every time the transaction starts between me and him, right? He shows his best, he puts his best foot forward. He shows me that he's a pleasant personality to talk to. कोई uncertainty हो, कोई mishap हो, last minute arrangements हो, कोई firefighting हो, the boy is so well put together. So I like his personality. ठीक है, सही है. इस तरह से रोहा है, she has her own calm, उसको हैंडल कर लेती है. ठीक है. और she doesn't talk back, she doesn't talk down, right? ठीक है. She's composed. So our interactions basically show our personality. ठीक है. हमारा रूड होना, हमारा कर्टियस होना, हमारा पोलाइट होना, हमारा फौरन से ट्रिगर ना हो जाना बेसिकली क्या शो करता है हमारी पर्सनैलिटीज को. ठीक है, सही है. So this basically theory, it is basically a theory that talks about personal growth. ठीक है. And how we can personally change ourselves. So the video we watched also talked about philosophical assumptions. ठीक है, सही है, right? I hope my letter is being recorded. I'm taking too much effort for this. So there are some philosophical assumptions, right? Let me start again, right? Because I don't think if on Zoom I can continue for a very long time, right? Let me stop and let me start another with another link.